everyone, welcome back. We are continuing in Module 2, Topic 2, Lesson 3, Activity 3. We are on page 289. Whole in proportions. Habits of mind, reason abstractly and quantitatively, construct viable arguments, and critique the reasoning of others. You can use proportions to determine the whole in percents. Let's read this, and then we're going to come over here and read that. Carlos is told that 65% of the students, or 78 students, prefer pizza for lunch, according to a recent survey. He wants to know how many students participated in the survey. So it says, analyze the model he drew to visualize the problem and proportion he set up. So he did a double number line like we had just done on the last one. Okay, and he said he knows that 78 was the 65%. So he did 65% here and put a 78. He knows the whole is 100%, so he's trying to figure that out. So he's saying the part over the whole is 78 over some amount. Here's part and whole, which is 65 over the 100. Over here it says, take note, 65 and 100 have a common factor of 5. When analyzing a ratio, always look for what the numerator and denominator have in common. So these both have a 5 in common. So if they both have a 5 in common, first thing it looks like he did was divided them both by 5, scaled down, got 20, 65 divided by 5 is 13, and then said 13 times what gets you to 78, and it's 6. So 20 times 6 gets you 120, and then they just rewrote it in this original form. Okay, so then he says, I wrote a proportion and determined that 120 students took the survey. How did Carlos determine the total number of students who participated in the survey? So he scaled down. He scaled 65 100ths down to 13 20ths. Then scaled up to get 78 over 120. Pause if you need to. I'm going to flip the page. Moving on to 290. Oscar says, instead of scaling down and then scaling up, it's more efficient to scale up from the start. I can use the structure of this proportion to determine the scale factor. So he has this set up, and he says, since 78 divided by 65 equals 1.2, I can scale up in one step by multiplying by 1.2. So I'll write this. So we have 78 over some amount equals 65 over 100. So if we're trying to figure out how do you go from 65 to 78, we know we're multiplying by something. So if we do the inverse, we can figure out what that is. So 78 divided by 65 gives us the 1.2. So we know we need to multiply by 1.2. So 1.2 there. So then I will multiply by 1.2 here. So 1.2 times 100 is 120. So that's what he did. It says use Oscar's method to determine the unknown value. We have already done these quite a bit in the last topic, actually. So 45, this is essentially 45%. So 45 over 100 equals 126 over something. How do you go from 45 to 126? Well, I'm not really sure, but I'm sure I can do 126 divided by 45. So it's telling me, I'm going to use a different color here. We're going to multiply by 2.8. So then 100 times 2.8. So remember, if I'm multiplying by 100, I'm getting 100 times bigger, so I'm going to move the decimal point 2 places. There would be 1 place and 1 more, so the answer is 280. That's an 8. 280. Okay, so number 3, determine the whole in each situation. The best player on your school basketball team makes 60% of her free throws. If she scored 90 points in a season on free throws, which are worth 1 point each, how many free throws did she attempt? So our part is the attempt. I'm sorry, our attempts are the whole. It's the number of shots she made over the amount she attempted. So that's our part to our whole. Okay, and it's telling us that she made 60%, so that's 60 over 100. And she scored 90, so that's how many she made. So what amount did she attempt? So how do I go from 60 to 90? Well, if you don't know, then we can divide 90 divided by 60, 1.5. So we're doing a times 1.5. So 100 times 1.5, move the decimal over 2 places, 150. So she had 150 attempts. Okay, you got a quiz back and your teacher wrote plus 16 on the top and 80%. She wrote both on the top. And you are going to figure out how many points the quiz was worth. So it was the amount correct over the total number of questions. So correct questions over total questions. You know you got 16 out of some amount, and you know that was 80% over the 100. Okay, so how do we go from 16 to 80, or 80 to 16 this time, because we need to go to here. So we're going to have to divide by something. So what are we dividing by? Well, so let's do 80 divided by 16. Divided by 16 gives us 5, so we're dividing by 5. So if I do 100 divided by 5, I'm going to get 20. So 20 points is what it was worth. I do want to show you, if you set it up this way, we would be dividing by 5 and then divide by 5. You still get 20. Okay, either way it's going to work. Okay, Gail made a 30% deposit on the purchase of a computer. She gave the clerk $168. What is the price of the computer? So we have the partial amount she paid, the part, over the entire amount, or the total, the whole. Okay, so it tells us she gave the clerk $168. What is the whole price? That's what we're looking for. And we know she did 30%, so 30 over the 100. So how do you go from 30 to 168? Because then we need to do 100 to that. So we're going to multiply by something. I don't know what. Sorry, I guess you didn't see that. So 168 divided by 30 is 5.6. So we're doing a times 5.6 to go that way, times 5.6 So we get $560. So $560. Give me a chance to write that down. Okay. I just want to kind of check this with benchmark percents. Let's think about this. If the total was $560, what's 10% of 560? 56, and it said 30%. So what would that be 3 times? There would be 3 of them. So 56, 56, 56, add those up, we would get 18, 5, 10, 15, plus 1 is 16, 168. So we know we're correct. So see, you can go back then and double check your work using benchmark percents. Okay, last one. Your friends ate at a restaurant and left a 15% tip of $2.40. What was the cost of the bill before the tip? So we have the tip is the part, the total bill is the whole. So we know they had left $2.40 was the tip amount, and we know it was 15%. So how do we go? We need to go this way. So how do you go from 15 to $2.40? Okay, so if we have 15 divided by something to get us to 240, so we're dividing by 6.25. Divide by 6.25, divide by 6.25, so 100 divided by 6.25 gives us 16. So $16. Let's check that with benchmark percents. So 10% of 16 would be $1.60. 5% is half of that. Half of $1.60 is 80 cents. That would get us to the 15%. 0, we're adding here. 6 plus 8 is 14. Decimals stay in line. $2.40. So we are correct with our answer of 16. Okay, and we will see you on the next video. Activity 3 is the only one we're doing on here. Again, if you have questions, please ask.